Every few years, Congress and the president get into a serious tangle over raising the debt ceiling. That's how much the government is allowed to borrow. The president and his Secretary of the Treasury say the debt ceiling must be raised.
I urge you to raise the debt limit.
They've run out of ways to keep the government going and paying what is owed without going deeper and deeper into debt. But Congress threatens not to go along unless the president agrees to do this or that. And this fighting takes us right up to the wire, the horrendous possibility of a default on the national debt that would shake world financial markets to the bone and threaten the full faith and credit of the United States.
Approaching the debt ceiling.
Freedom Caucus is trying to tie the debt ceiling to spending bills.
The debt ceiling freezes in at $20 trillion.
Deficit hawks in Congress taking a hard line on the debt ceiling talks.
High drama, a merciless game of chicken. May I make a modest suggestion? Stop the drama. End the game. Abolish the debt ceiling. It serves absolutely no purpose. When the debt ceiling was first adopted in 1917, it might have been a useful way to prevent a president from spending however much he wanted. But since 1974, Congress has had a formal budget process to control spending and the taxes needed to finance it. There's no reason for Congress to authorize borrowing for spending that Congress has already approved, especially when a failure to lift the debt ceiling would be so horrific. Having a debt ceiling doesn't discipline government anyway. The national debt is obligations government has already made to those who lent it money. Discipline has to do with setting spending limits and legislating tax increases, not penalizing the lenders, which is why most modern democracies don't have debt ceilings. Britain, France, Germany, Canada, Australia, they do just fine without explicit borrowing limits. Even more basically, the nation's debt is a meaningless figure without reference to the size of the overall economy and the pace of economic growth. After World War II, America's debt was larger than our entire gross domestic product, but we grew so fast in the 1950s and 60s that the debt kept shrinking in proportion. Today's debt is about 77% of our total national product. The reason it's a problem is it's growing faster than the economy is growing. So it's on the way to becoming larger and larger in proportion. This is what we ought to be focusing on. Fighting over whether or not to raise the debt ceiling is a meaningless and dangerous distraction. So abolish it.